So when we are now talking about the directors, like previous studies, we have the non-executive directors, the executive directors, and the like. So we are talking about the executive directors now. They have a service contract just like any other employee. They have the service contract. Also, like the HR policy that binds the organization and their activities as directors. And this must have its foothold in the law of the land. So these service contracts give the directors the power and the right based on the law of the land on what to expect, what is expected of them also. So their right as it consists in their service contracts or what we can call appointment letter as to maybe remuneration, minimum notice for termination of office, renewal of office or reappointment and the like. And one of the critical power that the directors have and can exercise is the power to go into contract on behalf of the organization. Don't forget I said they have service contract with the organization too. But equally they can exercise the power to go into contract on behalf of the organization, and it remains binding because the power for control of the organization has been given to the board of the director, in which they equally can delegate it to other layers of management. So they can go into binding contracts on behalf of the organization, and unless the veil of incorporation is lifted, is then the directors can have personal liability for the legal and binding contracts they enter on behalf of the organization. So for such to happen, then they must have violated their fiduciary duty or have allowed their personal interests to overrule and ride over their fiduciary contract that they have with the company or the organization. For the non-executive now, we've been talking about the executive director. For the non-executive directors and independent directors, they too have contracts of agreement with the organization with a fixed term. With a fixed term, unlike the executives that are direct employee of the organization and have employment letter or service contract with the organization and may not in the nearest future be terminated and the like. Non-executive directors have fixed term contracts, and best practices like in the UK, in Nigeria, usually the first term of their contracts will last 3 years. 3 years fixed term contract in which it will be renewed probably for another 3 years, and after that it is advised that another appointment should happen in which the non-executive, the NEDs, should resign and another be employed. This is to allow freshness on the board of directors, new ideas, and also to limit the threat of familiarity in which the non-executive directors are not that effective as they ought to be or they've been before. From the best practices perspective, 3 years term, first term, second term, renewable, 3 years. After that, the organization should be looking forward to appointment of new directors, especially the non-executive directors. Of course, directors, just as we just said, could be appointed. So if they could be appointed, they could be re-elected too. Then if they could be re-elected, definitely, and appointed, they could be removed. They could be removed on so many bases, not because of performance. Performance can be there, but even on the best practices form of thing, so that they will not be too familiar and become ineffective in their service to the organization. So, how are the directors appointed? If there is vacancy for any reason, maybe a director resigned, or by virtue of rotational tenor, that there's a vacancy. So the vacancy can be filled in which somebody is nominated. And when the person is nominated, the board could appoint the person. Of course, there should be a formal laid down principle and policy of the organization on how to appoint directors for several reasons like vacancy, resignation, rotation, and the like. So, having been appointed at the next annual general meeting, the person could stand re-election, which the shareholders must vote for. With, like in Nigeria and UK, simple majority is enough. 50% votes from the shareholders is sufficient enough to carry the appointed one to for the election, for success rather, pardon me. So the existing directors are required to stand for re-election at regular intervals. That's like a rotation. Tenor, when your tenor expires, another person takes over and the like. So that's not on the basis of maybe poor evaluation or performance. It is just rotational. And when tenor expires, another person automatically is appointed or proposed to be appointed. So when such exists, so then they could stand re-election for the next 3 years, especially if that rotation is the first term. So they could stand re-election for the next term, 3 years, after which they are considered to go out permanently. It is usual for directors who retire by rotation to stand the re-election. We've said that, and to be re-elected by a very large majority shareholder, especially if the performance of that person, the director, is a bit poor. It's possible that the shareholders will vote him or her out. Well, it could happen. When a director performs badly, it should be expected that he or she may be asked by the board or the chairman to resign. And if the chairman will not do that, at annual general meeting, the shareholders may not vote for the person's another tenure in office. Occasionally, a director may have the support of the board when the shareholder wants to get rid of him. That's a reverse of what I've been talking about. The board supports this person, but the shareholders just want the person out. So when this happens, well, like in the UK, the shareholders will call for general meeting and remove by simple majority votes the director. And even though the directors or the director in this case had been removed, he or she still has rights, legal rights, and especially for his service contracts, like the executive directors. Every obligation must be fulfilled on the part of the organization, even though the shareholders had agreed to remove him or her. So let us talk about the duties of directors. The duties of directors. Basically,